Hello and welcome to the Courage Coalition. Today I'm on, and you know what? It's going to be a little bit vulnerable with you today. I want to share something that happened to me this last week, something that really shook me in ways I didn't expect, and yet left me with a lesson that I believe I'm yet to learn, but just a lesson in seeing myself and hearing myself, and in that reflection of the energy that when we talk to ourselves in certain ways, that energy is reflected in everything that we do. So this last week, I was supposed to fly down to Texas, and I missed my flight. And it's the very first time in my life that's ever happened. And for someone that has always really had that grip on control, that grip on um, organization and how things worked, it was like a slap in the face. I'm not going to lie. Now, I wish I could tell you it was just about the inconvenience, right? The extra effort, the extra tears, the extra all this. And that I was able to get an extra night at a hotel or rearrange my planes and scramble and rebook, but it wasn't. What it was really about is what I was going to miss or what I was not going to be able to do. I had found a conference down in the Houston area called CAFO, which stands for Christians Alliance for Orphans. And I had never heard of this conference before. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, I hear you, God. This is for me. And so I did. I booked it. I was so excited. There was so much information going to be there. And honestly, there was a couple people there that I've interviewed on the podcast, nonprofit organizers. And I was so excited to learn from these experts, from these people that have been there and done it in the orphan community. And so I signed up, booked my flights, all the things, right? And then I started doing some podcast recordings with a couple of kiddos that had aged out of foster care systems. So if you listen every week, you've already heard those. And what I realized is that I was only going to be an hour from them by going to this conference. And it was just like this immediate knowing that I'm supposed to meet with them in person, record their podcast or record their stories in a way that was, one, the audio was better and very just clear and concise, but two, to really get to know these people, to see them in their stories, and to sit across from these young adults and give them space to share their stories with the world in a different way. I really, and I still want to do this, and I believe if it's meant to be, it will happen. I want to share their stories on our website in a way that really connects with humans, right? That connects and gets to other people to feel and see these kids and what they're carrying. These are voices that so often go unheard, and they carry both resilience and heartbreak in equal measure. And I think it's so critical that we start to hear their way, their story in their voices. So I was supposed to be doing that, and I was supposed to be doing this Christian Alliance for Orphans conference, and I was going to miss both. And it really broke my heart because I was all of a sudden realizing how many people that, well, one, the experience that I was not going to be able to do, but two, how many people I felt like I was letting down. So as I sat in the airport, honestly crying, I was crying. I had rebooked a flight, but it was only standby. So there was no guarantee that I was going to be on it. And even by getting on that flight, I was going to miss the opportunity to sit across from these young adults and record their stories. And I sat with that and I tried to figure out, what do you want to do, Corey? And it just came to me is that there's a reason this has happened. And it's not just that I'm late, because I don't do late. There's something bigger. But what came rushing in so fast is that you've screwed up again. Yet again, you have not made this work. You have not made what's supposed to work. And that's an old story for me. But it's funny how those old stories continually come back up. But I think recently I had scheduled, or I had recorded a podcast that talked about revisiting those old stories. And sometimes they're here to teach us a new lesson. So I ask you is like, maybe you've been there too, where you're having to revisit something you thought you've already moved past. And maybe it wasn't a missed flight, but maybe it was something in your business. Maybe it was something at home. Maybe it was an opportunity that slipped through your fingers because you didn't act fast enough because of those insecurities. Whatever it is, you know that voice, that one that hits right where worth lives, right? Like who you are and what you're doing right and wrong. It hits right there. And I don't sit in scarcity anymore. But it's funny how it still creeps in sometimes. And it says, see, you're never going to get it right. You're never going to have X. You're never going to accomplish that goal. And those old stories can still find a seat right at the table when we least expect them. Because that not enough story for me has been a lifelong companion. And in that moment, it was so, so loud. But I sat with it. And when I sat with it, I sat there for about 30 minutes trying to decide what I was going to do. And I came to the decision that I was going home. I wasn't going to wait it out in the airport all day just to see if I was possibly going to get on a flight. I was going home. So I started canceling as much as I could and letting people know that I wasn't going to be there and, apologizing all the things. But I was able to move through it extremely fast. In my past, I would have sat in that for days. And what I remember in all of that is that it was like this message from God. And I read this in a Bob Goff book recently about sometimes we can only hum through life. We don't necessarily know all the words already yet still. And I thought that's such a beautiful way of looking at the unknown. Why is this happening? What does this mean for me? What is it trying to tell me? And it's like that humming of this beautiful song. You don't know all the words, but you love the song, right? And so you just hum along. Because sometimes the words aren't for us to know quite yet. It doesn't mean that we're not supposed to keep going, keep humming. It means that moving forward with what you do know and trusting that the rest will be given to you when it's time, that grace allows us to hum. Grace allows us to show up imperfect, still moving, still aligning, still growing. And maybe that's what courage looks like sometimes. Not knowing all the words, not hitting every note perfectly, but staying in the melody anyway. So as I talk about that, I want to share with you just a little bit more extended version because it seems to have just kept happening this last week. Shortly before that happened, my daughter got in a car accident. And, it's always a mom's worst nightmare. But you know what? Everyone was fine. All was good. It was fine. Got her home. She was fine. She was safe, shaken up, but safe. So I missed that flight on Wednesday. I came home, and on Friday afternoon, my husband walks into the office and says, "We don't have full coverage on the truck." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "I just got off the phone with insurance, and Haley's truck is the only vehicle we don't have full coverage on." And I'm still getting a little teary-eyed, you guys, because I'm still so sad. I'm so sad. And there's so many reasons I'm so sad. One, we go through this life and we have these times in life where we hire someone to do something and we think that it's done or it's going to be done in an appropriate way. And we later realize maybe it wasn't, and we have to deal with the repercussions of that. And we get two choices. Do we create blame and should-haves and would-haves and values and worth and all the things, or do we move through it? And I will tell you, when that happened, I lost my shit in a sad way. I just sobbed. But what was going on internally is right back to where I was a few days before is that you're never going to be good enough. Because one of the biggest stories I have told myself through this process of going from stay-at-home mom to building a business and being the full-time income is that you aren't doing it right. You're not a good enough mom. You're not a good enough business owner. You're just not enough. And so the first thing I told myself when he told me that is, oh my God, you've screwed up again. How is this possible? I sat in this one a little bit longer, about a couple hours of really sitting with what I was telling myself, the energy I was throwing out there to the world, the story of not enough and what that meant, and just like the heartache that I was going to have to tell my daughter that we don't have insurance and your truck's not going to be replaced. And somehow I'll figure out how to make this right. But right now, I don't know what that looks like. She worked so hard for her half of that vehicle. And in that moment, I realized again is that I would have never made that mistake. I know that. This was a miscommunication and there's no one to blame. I don't get to blame myself. I don't get to blame anybody else. It's just happening. It's just an event and it's happening. There doesn't have to be a value or a worth or a blame to be put upon it. I knew in my heart that when we switched insurance a little over a year ago, that I said full coverage on all the vehicles except for the one that was parked here. And I also know that the one that was parked here actually did have full coverage. So it was a miscommunication, and we're humans and things didn't happen and I didn't check things. And even if I would have checked them, I may not have found it. But here's the truth I want to leave with you. Your worth, your value, it doesn't determine who you are. The missed flights, the miscommunication, the lost opportunities, the financial stumbles, doesn't matter what it is. It does not determine who you are. The heart behind what you do, the heart behind your intention, behind how you show up, even when things don't go as planned, that's who you are. Because maybe, just maybe, God was protecting me from something I couldn't see. Or maybe he was teaching me to sit in stillness long enough to remember that the mission isn't just in the doing, it's in the being. It's not just in the going, it's in the energy that you present. That my value, my worth isn't all wrapped up in being a mom, that I am many things. And another lesson to remind myself that I am enough, just as I am. And I've always been enough, just as I am. I hope this gave you some little bit of something today, sharing my story, allowing you to sit in yours, and reminding ourselves that what has always been does not always have to be, and that we get to choose each and every day when we open those eyes in the morning, and that is a gift. Until next time, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful day.